Women's rights have been under attack all over the country. But last November, we showed them! Yeah! Where are you? Yeah! Female voters, we made a really big impact, especially in swing states like Virginia. We threw our support behind candidates who support women. Women matter, and we are powerful. I'm a dangerous woman with a microphone. I'm frightening. We planned this rally to help you use your power so you can keep up with issues that need your attention and your support. We've got a great group of speakers to let you know what's going on and how you can get involved. We've got organizations here that you can join. The American Civil Liberties Union is here. Let's hear it for the ACLU. Women's Strike Force, welcome. ERA Action, and they came all the way from Ohio. ERA Now, Virginia. Virginia League for Planned Parenthood. NARAL, Pro-Choice Virginia. Richmond, Lesbians, Feminists. Progress VA, and Virginia Organizing. Now these groups, some of them have tables along sidewalks. When the rally is done, we're going to ask that you visit their tables, take literature, and get your information. This is a nonpartisan event. We're not talking about political parties. We're not talking about candidates. We are here today to talk issues, including ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment in Virginia, equal pay, voter rights, Medicaid expansion, women's health care, and reproductive rights. This is a peaceful rally, and Capitol Police have asked us to remind you that there are signs with sticks are not allowed. But again, we are powerful and peaceful people.
Yes.
Yes. The rally is going to last about an hour, then we're going to do a march around the Capitol. After the march, we're going over to Beauregard's Thai Room on Carey Street for some wonderful mixing and mingling. We hope that you will be taking pictures and shooting videos today. Post them on the Women Matter Use Your Power Facebook page so that people who were not able to attend will also be able to share in this event. And now I'd like to introduce our first guest. Our first speaker is Delegate Jennifer McClellan. Was elected to represent the 71st District in the Virginia House of Delegates in 2005. She serves on the Commerce and Labor, Courts of Justice, and Education Committees. She currently serves as Vice Black Caucus. Jennifer's community service extends to a wide range of organizations, including National Foundation for Women Legislators. Throughout Jennifer's public service to the Commonwealth, she has been a longtime advocate of equality for women and has continually fought for equal representation of women and a fair world for women and family issues in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Her commitment to creating a fair world where women have equal pay, access to health care services, and resources for education, family, and career planning is one of the driving forces of her legislative career. Please welcome Jennifer McClellan.
Is that working okay? that we recognize that, women are now 51% of the population here in Virginia, but we make up about a quarter, if that, of the General Assembly here. And in Congress, it's about as bad. And I've been struck this week. It's been kind of Women in Politics Week. I was on a panel earlier in the week, and they were talking about how we compare to other countries. And would it surprise you to learn that Rwanda has over 50% of its parliament is women? And they took over because after the genocide that they saw there, they thought, we really need a new direction. And we think women can run this government a little bit better, and they've been doing that. And I think if we had more women in government and politics, maybe Congress could actually get something done. But, many of you got involved last session, and I have to tell you, you really made a difference in a couple of ways. And for many of you, I read in the paper, I talked to you personally, and many of you said, we fought these battles years ago. We thought we were done. And unfortunately, we're not. And the biggest problem we face is those who lost or weren't as successful as they wanted to be just bided their time. And they thought if we wait, people will not be vigilant. And we can come back and start to erode some of the progress that we made on women's issues. And that's what we saw. And part of it, quite frankly, was our fault. Because we saw record numbers of people, including women, come out and vote in 2008. And we saw a record in the opposite direction come out and vote in 2009, in 2010, 2011, and what happened? We elected and I know we're not going to get partisan, but we elected a president in 2008 that we expected to put in on a certain agenda. And every year, another group of folks who did come out and vote and got their people elected did everything they could to stop that agenda, particularly on the Affordable Care Act, but that's not all. And part of it was us. And what I used to always tell people is, yeah, you got mad and you came out and you protested in 2012. Where were you in 2009 when a statewide ticket was elected that had an opposite agenda from the one that was elected in 2008? Where were you in 2011 when the Senate became a 20-20 split, where every single vote absolutely matters? But you came out, you learned the lesson. And you came out in force with a vengeance in 2012, and people, you got their attention. You got their attention. And I'll never forget sitting in the members' lounge the day after the first protest, the silent protest, where we walked from the General Assembly building to the Capitol with lines of women, not saying a word, just standing there peacefully protesting. And that day I sat in the members' lounge with Lacey Putney, been here 50 years, and I said, have you ever seen anything like that? And he said, no. Think about what all he's seen. And then, when you came out again, you got people's attention. The other side recognized, hey, maybe we've gone a little bit too far. And the 2013 session was not nearly as crazy as 2012. So I'm here to say, number one, thank you for waking up and coming out, but do not stop there. We have elections. We have elections in Virginia every year. But more important than just the elections is come and pay attention to what's going on when we're governing. Make your voice heard in the committee meetings. Make your voices heard in the interim with your legislators. Make your voices heard in the agencies as they're making their regulatory plans. Don't just show up on a pretty day with the signs and protest. We are a government by, of, and for the people, and that government is only as good as the people's participation. So that's up to me, but it's also up to you. We are a partnership, and your voice needs to be heard all year round because it is underrepresented in that building. But we will make sure that your voices are heard. And I see somebody may have a question. I don't know, given the time, I might have to come.
I have a challenge.
Okay.
Because I'm one of the people who did go to all of the Board of Health votes. I'm one of the people who did go into the trenches. And you are my delegate, and I want to thank you because I know you do a good job. But I'm a little disgusted, and this is why. At these events, I'm seeing Republican senators, Republican delegates come up and give their support. They go to these events. They're there. I've seen them. I haven't seen any of you. I've been there. I got thrown out of the last one. And what do I see on the Waddell blog as soon as I get back? The female Democratic whip for Virginia talking about how that is such a bad deal and that's why we need to vote Democrat. She wasn't there. I love your work. You weren't there. If you supported us the way you're supposed to be, the way that the Republicans are supporting their people in the trenches with their agenda that is so harmful to us, maybe we would be getting a little further too. So before you tell me to show up for those things, meet me halfway. Because I voted Democrat all my life. And if there were a viable alternative, I wouldn't be voting Democrat anymore.
And that is fair. And I was not at the last Board of Health meeting. You're absolutely right. I had a conflict I couldn't get out of. I did send a letter. I did contact all of the members themselves. But I've stood up every day on this House floor and in these committee meetings. And when I couldn't be there, I've been there. I am one person. I am one person. I can't be everywhere all the time, and I know neither can all of you, but we can be there when we can and get our friends there and make our voices heard when we can, and sooner or later we'll get through. So thank you, and that's a very fair criticism. I could have been there.
Working to help elect people who support us. Catherine Waddell is a former member of the Virginia General Assembly. She fought for women's rights in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. She's currently president of the Women's Strike Force of Virginia Political Action Committee, dedicated to recruiting and supporting all candidates, regardless of party or non-party, opposing any elected official who supported the personhood or mandatory ultrasound legislation in the Virginia General Assembly. Please welcome Catherine Waddell.
Nice introduction. And thanks to all of you for coming out. I don't Can you hear me? I'm going to put it down just a little bit. Is that better? Yes. Okay. Thanks to all of you for coming out today on this beautiful day. What motivates you to come to these rallies? What motivates you to speak out at the Board of Health meetings? I can tell you one thing that motivates me is I'm the mother of 2 daughters and the grandmother of 2 granddaughters. Woo! And another thing that motivates me is I am so passionate about women's reproductive rights, and I'm passionate about the Women's Strike Force. But something else that motivates me, it just happened here in Richmond 2 years ago. Do any of you remember seeing this picture on the front page? This was on the front page February the 25th, 2011. It shows 3 very happy legislators. Does anybody know why they're so happy? They're happy because legislation to regulate abortion clinics like hospitals passed. It passed the day before. Well, you know, everybody thought the TRAP legislation was defeated in 2011. They had a House bill that passed the House and went to the Senate. It was defeated in the Senate Education and Health Committee. So we thought it was done for 2011. But lo and behold, there was a little noticed bill
that passed the Senate, it didn't just pass the Senate, it flew through the Senate. It went to the House, it passed, flew through the House committee, went to the House floor, and what do you think happened on the House floor? Little old transvaginal ultrasound delegate Kathy Byron added an amendment to the bill. And the amendment directed the Board of Health to regulate abortion clinics like hospitals. And she even added a clause to speed the process. It passed, of course, it passed the House. It bypassed the Senate committee, went straight to the Senate floor, and it was a 2020 tie. We know what happens now with the 2020 tie on women's issues. We've got Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolden, and he is no friend to women. He broke the tie and passed the bill. So this bill went straight to the governor, and now that is law. So that is one of the things. This picture motivates me. I want you to know that this picture is my screensaver. It's on my bulletin board. I have it in a frame on my desk. I even carry a copy of it in my wallet. It reminds me every day what we want to do. You know, for many of you, Roe v. Wade was always here. But when I was growing up, it was not. And I have watched legislators maneuver, manipulate, control, camouflage bills so they can slip them through to add amendments, ignore testimony at committee hearings, laugh at graphic pictures, high-five at their so-called successes, all at the expense of women. From parental notification to parental consent with notarization, to conscience clause for hospitals and doctors, to 24-hour and informed consent, to unfunded forced ultrasounds, to regulating clinics as hospitals. And you know, clinics are already beginning to close. One in Norfolk closed. Which one is next? Do legislators think that we're going to forget all of that when we go to the polls? Forget what they've done? Forget how they're hurting women? We will not forget.
That's right.
And we know what's next, don't we? It's the personhood bill. It's the life begins at conception bill. They only skipped that this year because it's an election year, and the leadership instructed them to be low-key, downplay women's issues this year. Well, we don't care, low-key, high-key, we know the games they're playing, and let's face it, abortion is not going to go away. Laws will not stop it. The regulations and restrictions will only make it less safe. So what do we have to do to stop this war on women? I know what we have to do, and so do you. Defeat them! Defeat them! And we have great pro-choice candidates running this year. The sole purpose of the Women's Strike Force is to elect pro-choice legislators, and with your help, we will. Thanks again to all of you for coming out today. Please help us elect Virginians who know that women matter.
This movement for decades. It is delightful to see that this movement, this desire to move our issues forward is continuing. The women's rights movement has been around for a long time, and there are several generations of women who are still fighting for women's rights. It's very important to listen to our younger feminists to get their input on the movement. Our next speakers are young leaders from the Virginia League for Planned Parenthood and NARAL Pro-Choice. I give you Jeraine. Wave your hand, Jeraine, so people can see you. Jeraine is president of Medical Students for Choice at MCB. Gagoon is a Latino outreach organizer for Planned Parenthood. And Sandra Sanchez is from NARAL Pro-Choice, Virginia. Give it up for our next generation.
I'm an organizer of Planned Parenthood here in Richmond. Over the past couple of months, I've had the privilege to work with many women who are on the front line of trying to who fight daily for women's sexual and reproductive rights. The reason I first initially got involved with the organization was of my belief a woman's body being her own and not the public's to be marked by political discourse or decisions. I feel that there's a desire in people my age to get involved into the community and to create a change, but they're often told that they're too young or too naive or their voices aren't developed enough yet. But I see that there's a new spring though. My friends are now realizing that the decisions that are made in Washington, D.C., the decisions that are made in Richmond directly affect our lives, directly affect the lives of people in our community. And we're tired of it. We realize that there's a need to prevent these kind of decisions from happening, the kind of decisions that shut down clinics, that provide services to countless numbers of women and to their families as well. The kind of decisions that bring people into office who have never had women's advocacy or women's rights on their mind, their agenda, or even their vision. And we're now realizing that if we want to see anything happen in the world, we have to develop our voices and to organize to create a change that we wish to see in the world, but not just the world, but our direct community. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for letting me speak.
So hi, I'm Sandra. So before I begin, I just wanted to give a happy birthday to my mother, who's here today. I thought there was no better way to celebrate a Women Matter rally than talking about the women who's affected me the most, my mother. So I'm pro-choice because I don't know what's best for you. And I shouldn't pretend that I know what's best for you. Choice matters because people should be able to freely make decisions for themselves. Laws such as mandatory ultrasound, bias counseling, and 24-hour waiting periods, these all make me think that Virginia doesn't trust me as a woman.
Yeah.
But Virginia should trust me as a woman. The government needs to trust women to make their own decisions. We're more than capable and the most fitting to make decisions for ourselves. Now, access matters because it's the only way we can freely make choices. The recent approval of TRAP was devastating and enraging. The Board of Health, that is supposed to take care of those in the Commonwealth, decided to ignore them. They decided to ignore the safety and health of women. They buckled to the political pressure of Governor McDonald and Attorney General Cuccinelli without even realizing the devastating consequences of their decision. So since our current government couldn't trust us and our clinics, we need to do our part. Now this November, we all have to go vote. This is actually my first time voting in a gubernatorial race. And trust me, I won't forget what Cuccinelli has said and done.
Yes.
But I remind you to do the same. But not to remind just you, remind all of your friends and all of them what Cuccinelli has done and how extreme he is for Virginia. Look, McDonald and Cuccinelli, I get it, you're on a crusade to end abortion in the Commonwealth. But placing burdensome, politically motivated, and unnecessary regulations won't make women not have abortions. It'll just make it less safe for them. And arguing that TRAP helps women is completely offensive. If you really want to make sure women are healthy and safe, you wouldn't take away access to a safe, legal medical procedure. Access matters because if there's no access, then there's no choice. And if there's no choice, there's no freedom. Thank you.
president of the Medical Students for Choice chapter, and I'm elated to be here speaking on behalf of a lot of my colleagues and friends. When I was asked to speak at this rally, I became very nervous. I'm like a scientist, I've never spoken in this big of a crowd, but I'm happy to be here. I figured while I speak to you, I just really want to tell you all my story and why I became so, I guess, pro-choice and passionate about women's rights. I will be the first generation graduate from medical school, but recall making several mistakes with little guidance, including becoming pregnant while pursuing an undergraduate degree. I was fortunate to have resources that allowed me to continue my education without carrying on with something I was personally unprepared for and regarded as typical from where I'm from. You see, as a transplant from Brooklyn, New York, my mother had my sister at 15 and my sister had my nephew at 16. So this would really be typical for me to have a child. Nonetheless, I graduated from college and went on to continue graduate studies in New Orleans at Tulane University. While here, I taught health to a group of teens. It was interesting teaching health to women or teenagers who had already had children but couldn't tell me about their reproductive anatomy. See, in New Orleans, Louisiana, sexual education is abstinence only. So often, women are given no choice as well as no education on how to regard their bodies. Naively, I thought this issue would dissipate upon returning back to Virginia. It didn't. So right now, I choose to advocate for those who don't have a voice to do so themselves. Advocate for those who don't have the resources to make change. And lastly, I advocate for now and will ever advocate because I had a choice. And that choice has given me this position to be able to advocate for others. I charge you all, regardless of the accolades you possess or feel you do not, to continue to advocate for women's rights. Because remember, there are many women who cannot advocate for themselves. Thank you.
Liberties Union, the ACLU of Virginia, is the Commonwealth's guardian of liberty, working to defend and preserve the individual rights and liberties guaranteed to all people in this country by the Constitution and other laws of the United States. In addition to the litigation the ACLU is famous for, they also educate the public, they inform the media, they lobby legislators, they organize grassroots activists, and disseminate information about our constitutional freedoms through their membership and their volunteer chapters. Please welcome ACLU of Virginia Legal Director, Rebecca Glenberg.
Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm so happy to see you all here today, and thank you so much for your commitment to making your voices heard on issues that matter to all of us. Equality is an ongoing struggle, and despite the tremendous strides that we've made over the years on behalf of racial, religious, and ethnic minorities, on behalf of women, and on behalf of the LGBT community, there still remains a great deal to be done. And I just wanted to quickly talk to you about two fronts that continue to exist on the struggle for equality and what you can do to move things along as we continue to push forward. First is felon disenfranchisement. This is a great shame for this great state. Our Constitution provides that. Yes, a very important issue. Thank you. Our Constitution says that no person who has been convicted of a felony shall be qualified to vote unless his civil rights have been restored by the governor or other appropriate authority. Who are these people? They're not just rapists and murderers. We're talking about people who have perhaps stolen something worth $200 or more, stolen a TV set, stolen a blender. We're talking about people who have distributed more than a half an ounce of marijuana. All kinds of people are caught up in this law. When people commit a crime, they pay a price, they go to prison, they sometimes pay fines, but they should not be stripped of their citizenship. They should not be stripped of their voice as members of the community. So we need to change this outdated remnant of Jim Crow in our state. In Virginia, currently, there are approximately 400,000 people who are disenfranchised as a result of this unfair law. This makes up about 7% of all voters and over 20% of voting age African Americans.
Disgraceful.
That is disgraceful. Yes, thank you. That is disgraceful. 1 in 5 African Americans disenfranchised by this law. Now, Governor McDonnell has done a lot to streamline the process for restoring the rights of felons, and has in fact restored the rights of more felons than any other governor. That would be about 4,000.
Okay.
4,000 individuals' rights restored versus 400,000 still out there without the right to vote. So clearly more needs to be done. And Governor McDonnell says he supports repeal or amendment of the Constitution to change the voter disenfranchisement situation. This is something that we try year after year to get through the General Assembly. Year after year it fails. And a constitutional amendment needs to get through the General Assembly 2 times, plus through the voters. So it's a long process, and we need everyone's help in trying to convince the General Assembly to amend the Constitution. In the meantime, if Governor McDonnell is serious about this, he can issue an executive order automatically restoring the right to vote of felons, all felons, nonviolent felons. He can do it however he wants, but that is within his power as governor. And we have about a year to try to persuade him to do that. So, felon disenfranchisement, one of the major fronts in this state on the struggle for equality. Also want to talk to you about equal pay. This year marks 50 years since President Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act, which was intended to guarantee equal pay for equal work. But women still only make about 77 cents for every dollar that men make for the same work. And for minority women, the situation is even worse. African American women only make about 64 cents on the dollar, and Latino women only make about 55 cents compared to men. President Obama has signed the Lilly Ledbetter Act, a statute that made it easier for women to get access to the courts for violations of equal pay. But clearly these inequalities persist, and there are loopholes in the Equal Pay Act that need to be closed. So we need to urge Congress to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act. This is an act that would require employers to demonstrate, to prove that wage differentials between men and women holding the same job stem from factors other than sex. And it would prohibit retaliation against women who inquire about employers' wage practices or disclose their own wages. This was one of the major problems for Lilly Ledbetter herself. Her employers prohibited employees from discussing what their wages were, and so it took years and years for her to discover the inequalities that she was being subjected to. So we need to make our voices heard in Congress. Again, this is something that some progress can also be made on at the executive level. President Obama could sign an executive order, and we've urged him to do so, at least prohibiting retaliation for discussing wages for federal contractors. So we need to talk to Congress, we need to talk to President Obama, we need to talk to the Virginia General Assembly, and we need to talk to Governor McDonnell. We need to make our voices heard to promote the struggle for equality and move forward. Thanks.